to begin with the final farewell, the final journey, really, of Queen Elizabeth in Scotland.
The Queen's coffin has been brought to St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh for a memorial service and a chance for the public to pay their respects. Tomorrow, the Queen's coffin heads to London, where it will lie in state at the Westminster Hall ahead of the state funeral on Monday. The White House says President Biden and the First Lady will attend. Earlier today in London, King Charles III addressed members of Parliament for the first time as a head of the British monarchy. He honored his mother's legacy and promised to follow in her footsteps. Let's listen.
While very young, Her late Majesty pledged herself to serve her country and her people. She set an example of selfless duty, which, with God's help and your counsels, I am resolved faithfully to follow.
CBS News' Lana Zak is in London for us. Lana, you've been there now since last week. First of all, is there still space in London? It sounds like the whole world is there. And what's the feeling on the ground as people both mourn their queen and accept their new king?
Well, hello. Good afternoon, Lilia and Tony. You know, it's not the type of mourning feeling that maybe we had at the very beginning. It certainly has changed. Initially, it was much more spontaneous, with this area all open up to members of the public. They were bringing flowers. I saw a little Paddington bear that had been delivered, along with handwritten notes to Her Majesty, mostly thanking her. Now it seems increasingly, as we've seen folks here, members of the public line up in long queues, much more formal. It's systematic, and people are waiting a long period of time. And it seems like more of them are interested in being a witness to the history at this point. So we are seeing a change. And for all that we've already seen, we understand that the environment here, particularly outside of Buckingham Palace, will change considerably tomorrow when the Queen's coffin does arrive here and this crowd swells to even more hundreds of thousands of members of the public.
And Lana, as you go from thousands to tens of thousands, the expectation is that there could be millions lining the procession pathway on Monday when the actual funeral happens. That's a week from today. There's even talk of putting world leaders not in private cars, but in a shuttle bus. So you got Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron, everybody you can imagine.
Sounds like a fun one.
I would love to have a microphone in there just doing some MOS. What are you feeling? I mean, so it's gonna be packed. Like London is full. If your spot is not reserved,
I'm gonna have to try to get a job as a driver of one of those vehicles.
I think have a GoPro
just to be there.
Yeah, have a GoPro. Give GoPros to the drivers, and
I'm 100% here for all of that for sure. But I'm also curious. If you don't have your spot saved now, is there any chance you're going to be able to get a spot? And also, from the palace's perspective, how are they preparing for this crush of people?
Well, let's break it down. The funeral is going to be very limited in terms of the number of people that can be there. We also know that it will be deeply personal, especially if today's services were any indication. For example, there in Scotland, we heard among the prayers that were read, Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd." That was also read at the wedding ceremony of then Princess Elizabeth to her husband, Prince Philip. And that's the sort of deeply symbolic, personal rhetoric and thoughtfulness that will be part of that ceremony. But in terms of getting an opportunity, if you're not, say, a head of state or a major religious leader, to be able to say your goodbyes, that is actually going to happen both here, as you're seeing, continue, but it's also going to happen when the Queen's body lies in state for 4 days at Westminster Hall. They're really trying to give people in the public, the general public, the opportunity to say goodbye. And I have to tell you guys, it is really interesting being a foreigner here in London at this moment. The number of people, regular people that I've encountered who have deeply personal ties, that they met a member of the royal family, or the Queen came to visit their school, that it is almost incredible that she existed, yes, as a figurehead of the Commonwealth, but that she also had these individual connections with her subjects, and so they're trying to reflect that and giving the public an opportunity to also pay their respects, guys.
That's exactly, I mean, that's what I was thinking when he said, the public will have this opportunity to go visit, to be by their queen, because that's how she would have wanted it. I mean, she famously said something along the lines of, if they don't see me, they won't believe me. And she certainly wanted and was beloved by the people. So there was that kind of connection.
Yeah, that connection was there. Someone else who has a connection with the Queen and also with the new king and the history of the monarchy is your guest there, Lana, Wesley Kerr.
Yeah, I want to bring in Wesley Kerr.
A living encyclopedia. Take it away.
He and I have been talking all morning, talking about people who have connections to the royal family. Wesley has known now King Charles, dating back to the 1970s. He was a BBC contributor back in the 1990s, and he's now a CBS News royal contributor for us, lucky for us. So we've been talking about the Queen's legacy, and also we heard the King today in his very first address to Parliament. Speaking about that legacy, what are some of the challenges that faces him?
Well, I think today's speech was very important because it's a reminder that despite all this pomp and ceremony, it's a constitutional monarchy. So by him going to Parliament, yes, they might have been bowing, and he was at the centre of the ceremonial with the new Queen Consort. But Parliament is the boss. So I think that's very, very, the monarchy only survives by consent. And this was the great genius of his mother, and this is one of the things that he's got to do, is to always keep in step with public opinion. So that's a really, really important challenge. So he started, I think, very well with a fantastic series of speeches. His address, I think, the day after his mother died. So
very personal.
Well, because you've got this personal grief and a family's grief at the centre of this huge international event. But I think all of his messages have been pitch perfect. You see him with the support of Camilla, I think now broadly a popular public figure because of the hard miles that she's done and the work she's done and the endorsement she got from the past Queen. You see that he's got the support, of course, of William and Kate, who've been elevated in status.
Well, I want to ask you about William and Kate and Harry and Meghan, because that's obviously something that a lot of people have been very interested in. And when we look back at the last coronation of Queen Elizabeth, she was young, she was in her 20s. We're now looking forward to a coronation of a king who's 73 years old. The youth of the monarchy really exists more so than anyone else in Harry and in William. What will they need to do? What role will they play?
But I think actually it is a family. There's one sovereign, but it is a family. So there's older family members, slightly younger than the Queen, still working hard and doing engagements. There's his very active sister, very prominent, Princess Royal, and hugely important as a friend, and does even more engagements than Charles. There's the very popular Earl and Countess of Wessex. Andrew, obviously out of the picture, but very much taking part as a family member. Yes, William and Kate important, and then their children. So it's a multi-generational thing. I don't think that we will see Harry and Meghan returning to public duties in this country, but the Queen said, and Charles has said, that they're beloved members of the family. So that show of unity was very important. But I think that what we'll see is a scaled back number of engagements. The Queen hasn't been doing that many engagements for many years. Philip didn't towards the end. So I think it'll be a much more focused organisation and focus on particular causes.
And on that, really quickly, Wesley, I'm wondering how we'll see the king and that royal family modernize the monarchy, and if specific causes that are so important to him. We've heard how important climate change is to the new king. Will those be more prominent?
I think that's been something that he's been campaigning on for 50 years. When President Biden was here at COP26, he said, you started this. So he has enormous conviction in leading this, one of the great global challenges. And he's hugely interested in the environment. But he has improved the lives of about 1 million young people. He used his naval pay, his retirement pay in the 1970s when I first met him, to set up this incredible charitable network. So there's been transformative work all over the country for 50 years.
Transformative work.
And he'll build on that.
And a transformation yet to come. We're out of time, but you and I are going to continue talking, and we'll, of course, have updates for all of you back there in New York.